and welcome to episode 45 of Expertise is Overrated, the podcast that takes the time to answer the questions you didn't know you didn't want the answer to. I'm Sean.
And I'm Vib, and neither of us has any clue what we're talking about. This is going to be exemplified right now in that we have a potential tinfoil for last week, but we've got rid of the blurb that explains what tinfoil is. So, welcome to Expertise is Overrated. We genuinely don't know what we're talking about.
You could have talked your way through that. You realise this, right? You could have not admitted our failing and
but this exemplifies our dynamic. I'm the honest one, and you're not. So
that hurts. It's not untrue.
The much vaunted Expertise is Overrated tinfoil award is one that we give out to the person who had the most stupid thing to say in last fortnight's episode. That's kind of caught myself
in
there.
Our most recent episode.
In our most recent episode, there you go.
I'm the eloquent one. I may not be honest, but at least I can fucking talk.
Shitball. So we have two options today, so as you'll no doubt know, because you obviously listen to our episodes religiously, we sort of got rid of doing this every episode.
Yes.
Because we were starting to be too sensible. But I think this time we genuinely have said some potentially outrageous things.
You said something that I, in the moment, took great exception to, but it's festered in the back of my mind.
Oh, this is good. I've got to him, folks.
Yeah, so apparently all games are RPGs. All video games are RPGs.
All video games are RPGs, that is correct. But I fully accept that that's a shiny hat kind of statement.
It's definitely shiny hat worthy, but
it's a shiny hat that might actually protect me from the aliens, right?
Yeah, I think there might actually be aliens. I think that might be the issue. Me asserting that all video games are RPGs is up there. So that's one option. The other one is you, because obviously it's you. It's you. Always.
And this was you sort of making a case for, I believe, was it Slytherin?
I believe it was Slytherin. I think
I
was very eloquently and piece by piece taking apart J.K. Rowling's characterization of Slytherin House as inherently, objectively, and totally evil.
Yeah, and then you caught yourself, which I think makes this potentially tinfoil worthy. You caught yourself.
I saw it coming.
A massive pro-Stannis case, pro-Stannis Baratheon.
Yeah,
a man whom you've wrongfully, I might add, been trying to undermine, and
Well, the issue here is that I think for about 6 years now, been characterising to anyone who will listen, which is a rapidly dwindling circle of people who can't walk fast enough to get away from me.
Yeah, I do this so you don't have to, everyone. This is what we do here.
I've been characterising Stannis Baratheon as an incel, which is a viewpoint that isn't shared by many people in the A Song of Ice and Fire fandom. But I think it fits, personally. But yeah, I then quoted him essentially while defending Slytherin House. So really, I don't know who I am or what I'm doing anymore.
Yeah, it's great. So ultimately, you decide. Is it me for asserting that all video games are RPGs, or is it Sean for essentially not heeding his own, I don't know, advice? That's not really the right word, is it?
That was so close to good.
I know, right? Well,
let us know.
We're nothing if not professional. Because the other thing we hadn't considered is that given that we now record up to 3 episodes ahead of time, your feedback probably won't make it in until about 4 episodes from now. So, great.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to pick people in a month's time, more than a month's time. But never mind. Do let us know which of those two things you find the more egregious statement. And
tweet
why.
us, or come on Discord, which is a lot more active now.
It's popping.
Which has got something to do with you writing an article that is now superfluous. So
that was really funny. That was really, really funny. We were going to do an episode about that and everything. And
we were, yeah. But instead, you could say that because you published said article, a multi-million dollar company has now decided to retract their...
Yeah, everyone is welcome, by the way.
Exactly. Everyone who plays any kind of tabletop RPG and try to, I don't know, spin something out of that.
I single-handedly saved tabletop role-playing games by writing an article for a blog.
You did indeed, and I can't really argue with that.
That's brilliant. It's just provably true. But anyway,
there'll be a Wikipedia page on this for sure at some point.
Oh, you know what? I think there should be. I'm just going to write that down.
Oh, good. Let's move on.
Let's rapidly move on, because this is getting wildly out of hand and we haven't even started. What are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about Warhammer 40k.
Oh, how exciting. Specifically, this is the fact that we're all expecting the 10th edition of Warhammer 40k to drop sometime this summer, I think. Is that right?
I mean, so can we just let that sink in for a bit? Like, 10th edition of this tabletop RPG.
That's nuts.
Because that's ultimately what Warhammer 40k is.
To compare, Dungeons & Dragons is on its 5th edition, and they're playtesting what is going to be its 6th edition, even though they're not calling it 6e.
When did 1st edition come out for
D&D?
D&D, yeah, do you know?
70s? One sec.
The reason I'm trying to make that point is, 70s maybe is about right for War. No, Warhammer's not as old as that, I don't think. The thing I take slight issue with is that 9th edition of 40k, which is the current edition, came out in July 2020. And a mere 2.5 years later, we're already talking about releasing 10th edition. So I feel they're going through the motions a bit quick.
So the very, very original Dungeons & Dragons was 1974.
Wow, okay.
So that's
old, yeah. And since then, there's only been 5 iterations of that.
Nearly 50 years.
Not including the sort of half.
Five and a half, really. But the iterations of Dungeons & Dragons are really confusing, because there's like 4 versions of the basic rules before they get to second. It doesn't really matter.
No, but so Warhammer 40k, the 10th edition is coming out only 2.5 years later. Well, so this is one thing, we don't actually know when it's coming, but all the suspicions are it's this summer.
The rumour mill is this summer, which I think would put it on a 3-yearly release.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy, because they obviously released the new rule sets, and then they have to release all the new codices, depending on who you ask.
But we've had all the codices now, haven't we?
Yeah, and that's the thing. So if you buy that last one that's released, and then they update the rules, that's just kind of shitty.
So I think the way it's usually done is that the game doesn't change so materially between editions, although I think there is an expectation that it will simplify and streamline quite significantly in 10e, because 9th edition is just wildly complex. But 9th edition codexes will remain playable until the 10th edition codex is released, I think. But you'll be behind
I'm sure it's easily implementable. And they do that sort of thing because what's it called, Arcs of Omen or whatever it is, that sort of, I don't know what you call them, like,
it's a
supplements,
campaign.
add-ons, they're like campaigns, right? But they kind of change the rules for all the factions for that as well, which they kind of just push in these official updates.
Yeah.
But given that a lot of people own, hard copies of their codex, it's still a little bit shit. I don't know.
It's really irritating. It's really irritating. I will now own 2 copies of the Blood Angels Codex that's out of date.
Yeah, and given that these are not, inexpensive items that
they're
buying,
not cheap every time you buy them.
What happened to the Warhammer app, in which you could digitally sort of get your codex, access to your codex? Do you think they would just update that for 10th edition?
No, because they can charge you for it.
Yeah, I know. So, come on, GW.
There's you wonder why things like Warhampedia and Battlescribe are so popular. These are free apps and websites that basically give you all the rules. This is why.
Yeah. Also because they're hosted in, Russia.
Also because they're hosted in Russia, and so getting them taken down is very difficult. But the reason people use them is because Games Workshop make it so difficult to keep up with the rules.
Yeah.
And the rules are constantly shifting. And if you were to try and if you're a tournament player and you want a copy of the codex for every faction in the game so you know what you're up against, that's hundreds of pounds every 3 years. Plus all
you need the new core rules, you need the new codex for all the armies you play. It's just, it's never ending. I mean, there's a reason why GW is a wildly successful company, I suppose.
Yes, true.
And let's not talk about Warhammer Plus and the various IP things that GW have done in recent years.
No, and also let's not talk about the fact that I'm fairly sure there's just heroin in the plastic that they sell you.
There is definitely some highly illegal addictive substance in those models, yes.
It's the only possible answer. But anyway.
It's bad, isn't it? I'd love to sort of know the global stats of GW models bought, GW models assembled, and GW models painted. And I think the last one is a very small fraction of the first.
I think that's absolutely true.
Certainly, if my pile of shame is anything to go by.
I'm looking at a box of unassembled Space Marines as we speak.
Yeah, I know. It's bad sometimes when I go home, and I look through my old collection. I think this is now decades old and still not painted. But there's no point doing it now because why would you paint a firstborn Dark Angel when you could be buying a Primaris?
Well, because you don't get Primaris type Terminators. Anyway, we're jumping around and just chatting. We wanted to specifically talk about the assumption amongst the community, and I think it is at this point just an assumption, although a pretty well-founded one, that we're going to get another Primarch for the Imperium.
Yes. So Primarchs, do you want to do the honors? I mean, we've talked about Primarchs before, but
I was about to ask you that. But yeah, happy to. So the Primarchs are essentially mythical figures from the history of Warhammer 40k, from 10,000 years prior to the now current setting. They were 20 genetically built from scratch superhuman pseudo-demigods who led the armies of the Imperium on a great crusade across the stars to rejoin the scattered worlds of humanity.
Oh, by the gods. You've drunk the Kool-Aid, haven't you?
They're
at best, well, certainly in 30k, at best, sort of, they're like fourth in the hierarchy of power in the Imperium, I would say.
Behind who?
Well, obviously, Jane Space.
Yeah, behind Jane Space. The Emperor.
Then you obviously have Malcador. This is why I have to say 30k because he's now dead, unfortunately. But
Malcador is very dead.
And then any Custodes, because A, they're Custodes, and B, Henry Cavill collects them, so obviously.
B, everyone needs to be less fond of Henry Cavill. It's tragic.
Absolutely not.
I have a weird. I like Henry Cavill. Everything he's been in, he's very good. He's clearly a very nice chap.
You're building up to one big tinfoil hat here.
And the way that the community has grasped onto him as, look, Henry Cavill does this, so it's okay, is so tragic.
No, it's not so it's okay. It makes it awesome.
No, he's just a nerd done good. Sorry, guys. He doesn't.
You're focusing on the wrong end of my point. Is that Custodes still kick any Primarch's ass, regardless of Henry Cavill's involvement?
That's clearly not true from any of the Horus Heresy books. Constantine Valdor, the Captain General of the Custodes Legion, can't beat Omegon or Alfarius. I can't remember. The weakest Primarch.
I mean, in like a one-off, it's the same as that thing you keep bringing up. That in like a one-on fight, it's a coin flip. And you pick the strongest Primarch of them all as well to compare this to.
Alfarius? I'm not having this. I'm absolutely not having this.
Okay, fine. So
I'm fairly sure Magnus in one of the Siege of Terra books kills Malcador, so I'm not having Malcador either.
We can't take right Black Library really as any point of reference here.
It's the only point of reference
it's the unreliable narrator taken to the max. It's like Primarchs are great. You talk about people looking at Henry Cavill being like, "Oh, they make this okay." You're drinking all the bloody pro Primarch Kool-Aid bullshit.
I don't
Need
think
to remind you that virtually all of them are gone.
this is an accurate statement. Anyway, our disagreement on their relative merits notwithstanding, the expectation is that one for the Imperium is going to come back in 10th edition. So we thought that it would make sense before 10th edition releases to get our prediction out so that when we're inevitably proven correct, we get to feel smug.
Well, not that we are in a shortage of feeling smug, but
no, it's true.
But yes, I mean, I think that's right. So yeah, Primarchs are sort of, well, they're ultimately the leaders of the Space Marine legions, although they're not really legions anymore. But yeah, they're big, powerful beings, and of course they're named, which in a setting like 40k is always important because you need some named characters to actually field and do something with.
Yes.
Yeah, and of course with 9th edition, we got to see one Primarch come back, right?
Yeah, we did.
Actually, we should sort of caveat that by saying one loyalist Primarch.
Yes, that's absolutely true. So Chaos have always been able to field four of their, or not field, in the lore, field four of theirs, because when they turned to Chaos, they became demons, and so everything is like great.
It's odd, isn't it? Because I feel the rule sets for those, well, there's only 2 right now, I think, who've been released.
3
is
well, Angron is basic. I don't think he's actually out, but he's basically out.
Yeah.
And then Mortarion and Magnus. Yeah.
Yeah, and Mortarion has long been just ridiculously OP.
Yes.
Which is fun for everyone, I'm sure. So yeah, Chaos has had certainly sort of soft access to Primarchs because they've been around for 10,000 years.
Yes.
But Loyalists got back good old Rowboat, Robute Gilliman.
Robute Gilliman is my favourite pronunciation of that name.
Yeah, well, is there actually like a guide to on how to say it?
What we should really have done is got a Black Library audio book and listen to how the narrator of that says it.
Yeah, that's a good.
That would, I think it's Reboot.
Well, given he's got such a Roman influence, I'm surprised he didn't go like Robotus Gilliman.
Robotus
Gillimanus, exactly. But yeah, so Rowboat Gilliman, as many people call him.
He has a lot of silly nicknames amongst the fandom. But no, he came back. He was brought back by technology, magic, bullshittery, which is fine. And has...
I love that. That's a great description. Brought back by technology magic, yeah.
Magic.
Buy it.
Yes. I sort of struggle to get excited about Gilliman. I appreciate narratively why of all the Primarchs he's the one you bring back, because what the Imperium really needs isn't a general, it's a statesman, which kind of makes sense because it's so ballsed up. Essentially.
Yeah, so really quickly, I guess we should stress that all the Primarchs have a different character. They're all sort of facets of the Emperor, I think, is maybe the quickest way of saying it. So that, you have people like Rowboat, who probably more strategists. Then you've got the real warriors like Angron was, and so on and so forth. Mm. So they each bring something slightly different to the table.
Yeah,
and I agree with you that yes, narratively it makes a lot of sense to have brought him back, and also he's the Ultramarines, Primarch.
Yes, you're bringing back the Primarch for your best-selling faction and your poster boy. That's all fine.
Yeah, so well done GW on many fronts there, actually.
Yes, absolutely.
The problem for me is I just don't like the Ultramarines aesthetic. I just don't, and B, I really don't like the model they released for him.
Really? I think it's quite an impressive model.
It's overly ornate, I think, might be the.
But I think that's sort of the point.
No, I get that that's the point. I'm not having a go at them for designing it badly. I'm just saying it's not for me.
Maybe. No, I can see that. The sort of gold filigree on every panel of the armor is perhaps a bit much.
But also, yeah, I mean, it's much, and also try painting that.
I imagine painting it is an armor. But is it not also the most Imperium model ever? It's just like, there's just so much gold everywhere. It's ridiculous.
It is a bit, I suppose. It is a bit. I also don't really like that he's got the Emperor's sword, but that
seems weird to me.
And I'm sure that whoever comes back next will maybe have a word to say about that.
Make a case for it. I think I should have that.
And I also don't like the fact that it's one model for £40. But
that's just an
argument.
That's just Games Workshop.
Yes.
So, shall we? I don't really know how to do this. Shall we each say who we think is most likely to come back, or shall we go through all of the remaining loyalists? Maybe that's the way to do it.
I think let's frame. Yeah, let's provide a frame of reference. Just go through all the loyalist Primarchs. So to be clear, we're talking about loyalists.
Loyalists only. At some point, Fulgrim will come back.
So we have. Hang on, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 loyalist Primarchs. 9
in total, yes, because there were 20 and 2 got expunged.
Yeah, so it's an equal split of 18.
Yes, and then 9 went either way. Yeah.
So the two obvious ones to not hope for are Ferrus Manus and Sanguinius, because they are hella dead.
They're both very dead. So Ferrus Manus was beheaded. Which is quite hard even for a Primarch to get back from. And Sanguinius was killed by Horus, who's the sort of arch traitor at the very end of the eponymous Horus heresy.
Yes.
It's so essentially
unlikely candidates.
Unlikely. I think we should come back to both of them, because you could probably make a slight case for either of them. But yes.
And I'll throw a third one into the mix who's not a Primarch, but who is never a million miles away from being released, which is the Emperor himself.
Interesting. I'm going to throw Constantine Valdor into the mix as well.
Does he not have a...
No, he doesn't exist in 40k. It's Trajan Valoris who leads the Custodes.
Oh, shit. Okay, so we got Ferrus Manus, Sanguinius the Emperor, and Valdor.
Yeah.
As unlikely shouts, also not, well...
I actually think Valdor is quite likely. I don't think he'll be a Primarch release. He won't be that, but I think he's quite likely. But we'll come back to that.
Yeah, and
as a postscript,
I do feel Custodes have become increasingly popular, so that they might want to ride that wave a little bit.
And I was being grumpy, but the Henry Cavill effect, especially if this Amazon thing takes off.
Yeah, but that's it. I think we can come back to that.
Yeah, at the very end, I think. So then who are we going to talk about?
So, well, we've covered Robute, because he's out. So we have him. Then I guess we've got Rogel Dawn, Leman Russ, Jagatai Khan, Lionel Johnson, Vulcan, and Corvus Corax.
So who can we tick off quickly then?
I would say Rogel Dawn, which
Dawn is quite dead.
He does seem to be quite dead.
He's like, his skeleton is encased in a block of amber. So
is it?
I think so.
I thought the Imperial Fists just recovered his hand.
Well, the excerpt that I found from
because I think that's the last you really see of him, right? That he charges head on and
all they get back is I thought that was the true at the end of the first Black Crusade.
Yeah.
I thought that was true, but then what I found on the wiki suggests that Dorn's skeletal corpse without the hands was also placed by the Imperial Fist within another chapel on the phalanx, embedded within a block of clear amber that has been contoured to match the body's form.
Huh. Okay.
I don't know that is true.
Yeah, so the issue is that he sort of dies off screen in that case.
He does die off screen. I think that might be the biggest argument in his favour for coming back.
and Imperial people love Rogel Dawn as a character, so
He's
having
been
him
characterized
killed off,
incredibly well during the Siege of Terra novels, so
yeah.
he's becoming a lot more popular.
Then people also like Sanguinius, and he's definitively dead. So
Yeah.
yeah, to me anyway, I think Dawn seems unlikely at this point. I don't know about you.
I think he's unlikely. They've just done a load of Black Templar releases, so I think if Dorn were to come back, I don't think you get Rogel Dorn, the Emperor's Praetorian. So Dorn's big thing, well, he had two big things really. One was being a fortress builder, and he's the one who fortifies Earth during the Horus Heresy to hold off the armies of Horus and Chaos. But he also, after the siege, essentially snaps and sort of leads the scouring and sort of burns the traitors from space. So I think if he came back, you might get that side of him, the sort of crusader, rather than the fortress builder.
Yeah, I'm tempted to agree, and that would also just be really cool.
It would also be really cool.
But I feel you need a story, as in you need a Primarch, I think, who sort of goes out and recovers Dawn, if that makes sense.
I think that's right. I think what you might get two in Tenny. You might get one early, and then they go and get Dorn back from Perturabo, say, and that's how you bring Perturabo back in.
Yeah, the issue is I'm not sure who that would be. I feel somehow it wouldn't be Guilliman because he's too busy doing.
Guilliman is too busy trying to rebuild the entire Imperium to not be an awful fascist theocratic dictatorship.
Well, yeah, that's a whole other.
Which is a very, very long task. So I think he's quite unlikely, is Rogel Dawn.
I think Dawn is unlikely. The other one that I would think is unlikely is Corvus Corax, and that's purely from a popularity standpoint.
I just don't think the Raven Guard are popular enough to bring Corax back.
They just don't seem to sell very well, do they?
It's a difficult one. It's sort of chicken and egg, isn't it? Because they don't sell very well, but they also don't sell many bespoke Raven Guard models.
Yeah, well, they dropped a box quite recently, I think.
Yeah, but it wasn't really Raven Guard. It was just like a load of not very popular Primaris stuff, plus the Shrike model.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, Corax, I'm not particularly excited, so I don't really want him to come back either, but I feel he's unlikely. So and he's one of those who just disappears into the warp, right?
He could. We've seen Corax in Black Library books more recently than I think any other Primarch.
Yeah.
Any other loyalist. But he's turned into some like weird unkindness of ravens swarm shadow monster thing.
I think this is quite important.
Cool.
Yeah, it would be cool, but it's not helpful, I think, if you're trying to sell just regular Space Marines.
Yeah.
But I think anyone who disappeared into the Eye of Terror or was last seen anywhere near the Eye of Terror it's not necessarily unlikely that they'll come back, but I think they need to just figure out how they're going to do that.
Well, they do, yeah. I think we'll probably have this conversation when we speak about Lehman Russ. So maybe he's the next person to go to, because I think he is fairly likely.
From a popularity standpoint.
Especially from a popularity standpoint, and from a fact that there's always bespoke Space Wolf models. Always.
Yeah. Plus, he's a real counterpoint to Guilliman's sort of controlled strategy, whereas Russ is just I'm going to go and kill this thing now.
Yeah. Russ takes his entire legion from Terra during the Siege of Terra, or just before the Siege of Terra, and tries to kill Horus.
Yeah.
Which, and sort of everyone, including Dorn, is like, can you just stay here, please? Because you guys are... That's a lot of Space Marines, plus you yourself. Could you stay here? That would be really helpful. And Russ is like, fuck no, I'm going to go and kill Horus.
Yeah, well, it feeds into the whole thing that Russ is possibly the person who's killed off the two unnamed Primarchs.
Yes, potentially. And to be fair to Russ, he gets very, very close. He gets closer than anyone does until the Emperor kills Horus. So, might have been worth it.
Yeah, talk about being shown up by your own father, huh?
Daddy, help!
I took all my Marines to do this, and you just beam onto the ship and destroy him.
Just obliterate him. No, I think
Um,
the issue with Russ, exactly as you say, is he was last seen charging into the Eye of Terror, which is a wormhole to a parallel dimension filled with chaos for the
but I've
uninitiated.
seen conflicting reports of that as well, and that one wiki suggested that he just left this feast that they were having, and then was never seen again.
That's pretty cool. If he's just like hanging out in the Fang, just getting really pissed.
Yeah, because he just I think he hands over command to what's his name?
Bjorn.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to say yeah because I don't actually know.
I'm fairly sure Bjorn the Fell-Handed is the first chapter master of the Space Wolves after Russ goes.
Sure. So I mean, yeah, sure. So Russ again to me seems unlikely, partly because maybe there's some misalignments in terms of his current lore. Plus, anyone from the Eye of Terror, I just doesn't feel like they've done enough explanation or setting up for that to really happen.
No, I think we're both going to end up in the same place with who we think is coming back.
The way we're going, possibly, because I guess the next one would be the Khan. Now, I know he's not really in the Warp and the Eye of Terror, but he's equally somewhere.
He's in the Webway.
Yeah.
So
the Khan would be great, though.
The Khan would be great, and he's been Chris Wright, who wrote the White Scars novels for the Horus Heresy and the Siege of Terror, has completely recharacterized the White Scars and Jagatai Khan to be really cool. Like Jagatai Khan is so cool as a character. He exudes that sort of like does not give a fuck energy, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, and I think what the Khan would offer you as well is, the White Scars, his original legion, is so built around, Mongol hordes. So it's lots of fast bikes and land speeders and things like that. Like it's a very different feel of an army, I think, compared to the Ultramarines, which is so that would do quite well. We'll come on to this later, but I think the fact that he's in the Webway fighting Dark Eldar means it's unlikely that they'll pivot to him based on the stories that they've released so far.
Doesn't feel like the stories that they're currently trying to tell.
No, and both of us saying that kind of implies where we are going to end up.
Yeah. So who do we need to take off?
Vulcan.
Vulcan. The complicated thing is Vulcan is just alive and living on a planet somewhere as a farmer.
Well, yeah, because out of the Salamanders, and the Salamanders do that, right? They go back home and just chill with their families for a while.
Yeah, and Vulcan is immortal. Vulcan is a perpetual, so he's seeing what is going on in the Imperium and is like, nah, can't be bothered with that. So I don't see how you bring Vulcan back narratively.
Yeah,
like if
who's his nemesis in the traitor camp?
Conrad, probably.
Yeah, he's dead, right?
And Conrad is very dead, and I don't see Conrad coming back because he didn't fall to chaos; he just turned traitor.
Yeah,
he's the only one for whom that's true. But his whole shtick was turning against the Emperor rather than to chaos. So when he gets shot by Mshen, that's just him dead. That's just him dead as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Except that the Emperor has made it clear that he could probably bring back any of the Primarchs, which is confusing.
Yeah. The Emperor is also in a weird state.
So. Yes.
I mean, Vulcan... I mean, people love the Salamanders, and I think they are...
Do they, though? I don't know that that's true. Maybe you and I are just hearing different things, but I don't get the sense that the Salamanders are popular enough.
Maybe not. Yeah, maybe not, because they're not, they're not in the big four, should we say.
They're not the big four. I think that's the core point. So that almost pulls us back to who are the big four.
Just to finish that off, I think when I say people like Vulcan. I think I've often seen people say, like, if you had to pick a good guy Legion, you would probably pick Salamanders.
Yes, the Salamanders are the closest to
not total just
good guys. Yeah.
Because they go home and they actually care about humanity.
Yeah, their whole shtick is trying to preserve their own humanity so that they can better protect the rest of humanity.
Yeah, which is then weird that Vulcan is a perpetual. That seems kind of at odds with that kind of ideology. But anyway.
Yeah. It means that Vulcan gets to give his life for humanity over and over and over and over and over again, which is great.
I hate that that's probably true as well. We're at it. So
who's left?
I'm too angry to speak right now, so why don't you talk about the Big Four?
So the Big Four, this is a sort of unofficial term for the four probably best-selling, although I'm not sure that's 100% provable, chapters.
The ones that have supplements and have had supplements for a long time.
The ones that usually get supplements. So that is the Space Wolves. Well, the Ultramarines are the last of the Big Four, I would say. So you get the Space Wolves, the Dark Angels, who we haven't spoken about yet, and the Blood Angels, who are Sanguinius's chapter. And then you also, the fourth of those is the Ultramarines, who sometimes get a supplement and sometimes don't, depending on the edition. But the reason that they don't always get a supplement is they are the archetypal everyone else chapter, essentially. Exactly, so if you're not, if you're not harking after the Blood Angels, the Dark Angels, and the Space Wolves, you're basically an Ultramarine, even if you wear a different color.
Of sorts. Yeah, I mean, they're the ones you see on all the posters, exactly.
Yeah, they're the ones on all the posters.
And that's why their Primarch came back.
And that's why their Primarch came back.
So we talked about Lehman Russ as a potential, so the leader of the Space Wolves. He might well come back, although I think there are issues there. Blood Angel, Sanguinius, very unlikely. Well, come up every now and then. People saying Sanguinius is coming back.
I've seen a lot of people chatting about ways that Sanguinius could come back. The favourite one at the moment seems to be some sort of horrible fusion of Dante, Mephiston, and the Sanguinor, which is a sort of guardian spirit angel thing that you can take as a Blood Angels player.
I'll let you vent your frustrations at that, because
I hate it. I hate it so much.
Yeah, why do you hate it?
So Sanguinius, if we go back to the talk about how each of the Primarchs embodies an aspect of the Emperor, essentially, Sanguinius is, as I've always seen it, somewhere between the Emperor's hope and the Emperor's spirit. And it is almost fundamental to the setting that for the last 10,000 years, that aspect of the Emperor has been dead. It's not sleeping, it's not anything, any of these other things. It's not crusading the Webway or hunting the Eye of Terror. It is dead. Horus killed it. And when Horus killed Sanguinius, he kills the future of the Imperium, which, all right, that might be because I'm a Blood Angels player and I think Sanguinius is the coolest, but you see so many times in the Black Library books the huge impact that Sanguinius's presence has on other Primarchs and on the general population even more, that bringing him back breaks the 40k setting, because 40k does not work with a true beacon of hope. He's like Celestine, but turned up to 10 million.
Wow, okay, that's a comparison I feel no one's made before.
I haven't really thought that comparison through. But no, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you for once. Plus, it gives me great joy to deprive Blood Angels players of their Primarch.
I think that what Blood Angels players need is a new Dante model. Like, I think that would do.
Dante model is actually getting ridiculous.
I would quite like a new Primaris Dante model, and I'd like him to have a nicer jump pack with like actual wings and stuff.
But I feel this is just an in-joke at Games Workshop at this point.
I think it's actually a meta joke. So you know how Dante's whole shtick, so Dante is the leader of the Blood Angels at the moment, but his whole shtick is being like 1200 years old and just wanting to die. So what Games Workshop are doing is, with that, they're poking fun at Blood Angels players who just want a new Dante model. And just like Dante can never die, we can never get a new Dante model.
Exactly, and I really like that as a meta joke. And it's just
it's really,
kind of Dante's thing as well, as he wants to die, so why should he try to cross the Rubicon Primaris, or why should he try to wear different armor when maybe he's just hoping that his armor will eventually fade.
My armor's really shit. So my favourite thing is, so Dante basically dies during the devastation of Baal, and he has like a vision of Sanguinius. And Dante's like, oh, thank God, I can finally die. And Sanguinius is like, you don't get to die. You're going back. And Dante's just like, no, I'm so old and tired. It's really funny.
It's a little bit of an issue, right? Because it very much suggests that Sanguinius' spirit is somewhere.
His spirit is somewhere. I think that's true, but I think that's probably true of all of the Primarchs except Horus. Because
exactly. But it sort of means the door isn't completely shut in terms of we could bring back Sanguinius through some warp fuckery thing.
Because his body is also around.
Yeah.
He still has a body. His body lies beneath the Tower of Angels on Baal, or Baal, or however you pronounce it. So it's not. It cannot be beyond the capabilities of Ivrain, who brought Guilliman back, to also bring back Sanguinius. And
there's someone in your background who disagrees with everything you've just said.
Yeah, she's really unhappy. I'm not quite sure what's going on. I think we're okay.
I mean, it's right that she learns sooner rather than later how wrong you are about most things. So this is all good.
So I think you could do it.
There's an outside chance, really, that instead of bringing back a Primarch, they just say, listen, we're going to bring back a new Dante and
give him a proper juice up.
Yeah. And then kill him off in the literature like 2 months.
That would be really funny. Yeah. I think
he's Primarch now. Oh,
I actually think Dante should die crossing the Rubicon. I think that would be a really good way to show that. So there is a procedure that Space Marines can go through after Games Workshop release their new line of bigger, better, fancier, and most importantly, trademarkable Space Marines, who are called the Primaris, which is called Crossing the Rubicon Primaris, and it's meant to be like only 60 or 70% of the procedures are successful, and every single named character who's gone through the procedure has survived it.
Yeah.
For really obvious reasons, from a selling models perspective. And that's why Dante would survive it if he went through it as well. But I think a really good way to kill Dante would be to put him through the Rubicon Primaris and to have Belisarius Cole go, oh, this was not designed for someone 1200 years old.
I think Robo tells him that, right? He says, you're too important to do this. So
one of the 3 senior Blood Angels has to go through it, and Dante's like, I'll do it. And everyone is like, absolutely not, you're way too important. Mephiston can do it. And Mephiston's like, excuse me? Very rude.
And he did.
And he survived it.
So the one person we haven't talked about, and I suspect that's because we both think this is the likeliest.
Yeah, who's the one who's just definitely coming back is
least of all, because I think the most recent chapter master to have crossed the Rubicon Primaris is in fact Azrael.
Yeah, so we're talking about Ferrus Manus, right?
Ferrus Manus, yes. Because all he needs is his head.
He just needs his head sticking back on.
That'd be quite funny. Well, you said that's the obvious way to bring back Fulgrim, realistically.
What, to redeem Fulgrim?
No, as in Fulgrim.
To get a Fulgrim model, you bring back Ferrus. That's absolutely true.
But you bring back Fulgrim as a good guy because he's seen the error of his ways and has revived Ferrus Manus.
And they get him out that painting.
Exactly, because that's where Fulgrim is. And then you're selling lots of Iron Hands, which everyone wants.
And there's your issue with Ferrus Manus. Not just that he's been beheaded, although that is a small issue, but that no one... Apparently they're very good at the moment, Iron Hands. Apparently they're very good at the moment, but...
but it changes every 2 weeks.
Yeah, the meta's constantly shifting.
And I
And
mean,
no
the one professional player the one tournament player who plays Iron Hands has been just really good.
yeah. No, obviously. Do you want to take this one?
It's not Ferris, man. It's probably Lionel Johnson, isn't it?
Yes.
The Primarch of the Dark Angels, one of the big four that we've sort of crowned the big four. Yeah, so Azrael, the current chapter master of the Dark Angels, has crossed the Rubicon Primaris, and they've released a new model for him. I think he's the only one at the moment, right, in terms of named characters that they've released with the Dark Angels who's done that.
He is the only named Dark Angels Primaris, yes.
Yeah. I'm sure many will follow. But of course, very recently, Games Workshop announced a new starter box set, Wrath of the Soulforged King, which pits the Dark Angels, including Azrael, against a Chaos force led by someone called Vashtor the Archiphane, which is just a fantastic name.
The name is just Wrath of the Soulforged King.
Yes.
Wow.
Led by Vashtor the Archiphane.
Led by Vashtor the Archiphane. I mean, come on. Master of the Forge of Souls. That's so good. How does that get through a workshop?
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just making fun of Games Workshop's inability to name anything.
Oh, it is great.
It's so good.
But as I understand it, he's not dedicated to any particular chaos god.
No,
If you want to know more about the chaos gods, we have released a few episodes on them, so go listen to them.
We have. Go back and listen to those. And we have, in fact, we should have sizzled this at the start. We've already released an episode on the Primarchs as well. So if you want to know more about them, go back to our Ranking the Primarchs episode, in which we argued for a long time about the Lion and Leman Russ and Sanguinius.
Absolutely. And I think I made the point that I think the Lion is the first one to come.
I think you did. I think I agreed with you. No,
I should point out I'm a Dark Angels player. So
yes, you are.
There's no wishful thinking or ulterior motives here whatsoever.
No.
This is pure data-driven analysis that I'm providing right now. Of course.
Yes, absolutely. So Vashtor the Archiphane, as I understand it, is a unaligned or chaos undivided demon, greater demon prince, one of those two. Minor deity, potentially, unclear.
Yeah.
And he's like chaos machinery. He's like the chaotic equivalent of the Omnissiah, essentially.
Yeah, and he's got links to like the Dark Age of technology and stuff like that. And I mean, when I first saw the box set, I actually thought he was a Necron.
He does look quite Necron. He does look a bit like a Cryptek or something like that.
Yeah. He does a bit, yeah. But it makes sense to pit him against a new Dark Angels box set because people do like Dark Angels. I actually think maybe they're the most polarizing. I'm not sure.
I think they have some really interesting background lore, right? The whole Fallen stuff of they're one of the few legions that split right down the middle, essentially, on who to support.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that they might be the only one actually for whom that's true.
But there's a lot to unpack there still because so in a nutshell, the parts of the Legion that the Lion left at home on the homeworld of Caliban, they became traitor, and so when Lion brought the rest of his Legion back home, they were fired upon and massive fight ensued. But with the exception of Luther, who sort of was at one point Lionel Johnson's second in command and assumed command at Caliban.
Yeah,
I'm not sure there's really anyone who notably fell to chaos in the way Luther did. I mean, Luther became a demon of sorts, or at least was empowered by a demon. But the other Fallen is sort of just traitorous. I don't think there's any overt chaosiness going on necessarily.
I think the problem is the most obvious Fallen other than Luther is Cypher. He's the other named character Fallen, essentially, and he's so weird and so confusing. and he might be fallen. He might actually not be. He
Yeah,
might be the
so
same
many.
Cypher from 30k doing time travel fuckery. Like, he could be an aspect of the Emperor. It's so unclear what Cypher is.
Yeah, I mean, what we know is that there was a position called the Lord Cypher in the Dark
Yes.
Angels, and he was last seen fighting someone else whose name I forget. No one really knows how that battle ended. Yeah, someone could have just assumed the mantle of
Yeah,
Cypher.
it could be anyone.
I recently saw, which I quite liked actually, is that Cypher is just Alfarius.
I love that.
Which is
That's
quite funny.
so good.
I'm all for that.
just Alfarius bullshitting around with one of his brother's legions again.
Yeah.
But why is the Lion the most likely to come back?
So the line,
other than the fact that they're selling a Blood Angels starter box.
Dark Angels, yes.
Sorry, Dark Angels.
Yeah, you with your Blood Angels on your mind.
I can't get them out of my head.
No, so there's the obvious, they're starting to sell Dark Angels models a lot. Then there's the second bit, which is that the line is one of the few who's demonstrably just alive, but in stasis, very a la Guilliman.
Is he even in stasis? I thought he was just having a kip.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's asleep, but he's been asleep for 10,000 years. I'm going to call that stasis, if you don't mind.
Yeah, fair.
Or just the world's worst hangover, I'm not sure.
But his wounds are meant to have healed and all of that, aren't they?
He's been healed for some time, actually. So he's on the Rock, which is like the Dark Angels' home base now. It's just a big bit of Caliban. So he's sort of in the vaults there. No one really actually knows that he's there. I think Azrael might be the only one. Perhaps some other really senior Inner Circle members, but
I can never remember because Luther is also there, isn't he?
Well, see, this is the thing. There was a story that came out quite a while ago now, actually, that Luther has escaped.
That would be bad.
He's gone. So Luther is gone. He was woken up and he was broken out, which was one of the first incursions on the Rock that happened. And this new Vashtor the Archifane storyline is about him attacking the Rock. So they really need to up their defenses on this damn Rock. But that's the thing. So they're releasing a box set, the narrative of which is some chaos thingy attacking the Rock, and we know the Lion is there. We know he's alive. We know his wounds have healed. So I fully suspect Vashtor the Archifane is going to. He's looking for something called the Key, I think, and he's going to go into like the depths of the Rock, knock on the wrong door, and be just absolutely cut in half
by the Lion.
Of course, they could go the other way, where he just strolls in and kills Lionel Johnson.
Just absolutely bodies Lion.
It's like, I'm the Lion. Who are you? Oh, I'm dead. Okay. So that's possible. Of course.
That's true. I completely agree. I think narratively, the Lion is the easiest to bring back, especially if you're pushing a sort of there are incursions into the Rock. Luther has escaped. So we've got to wake up the Lion because the Lion's the only one who can take down Luther. That all makes sense to me. It also works from a slightly different perspective in terms of creating some interesting conflict within the Imperium.
Yeah, so the Lion was, or is rather, a bit of a different character to Guilliman, isn't he?
Yes, he absolutely is. There's a really interesting storyline during the Horus Heresy. It's a 3 or 4 book arc, I can't quite remember, which talks about Imperium Secundus, which is this idea that after essentially the traitor Primarchs do some warp fuckery and manage to essentially block Terra from the rest of the galaxy, so no one can get any messages in or out. So Guilliman goes, oh no, Terra might have fallen. Better set up my own Imperium.
Yeah, which is a natural response, of course.
Which this is the thing. It actually makes perfect sense because Ultramar is a pre-built empire of 500 systems with its own sort of logistics and defenses and all of that. It makes perfect sense. But the Lion turns up and basically goes, smells a bit like treason in here.
Now, the Lion is famously a forgiving kind of guy.
He's a very, very black and white chap, is the Lion. But he's very interesting because he is entrusted by the Emperor with weapons that no one else is trusted to wield.
Yeah, and I was actually wondering this again from a sort of releasing new toys kind of perspective. Bringing back the Dark Angels in sort of their full force could be quite interesting,
Yeah.
right? Because there's all sorts of weapons that they could be like. You complain about how strong the Tower Railgun is. Well, have this.
Yeah. Watch these complaints vanish. No, I mean, during the Horus Heresy and the Great Crusade, the Lion had like an army of men of iron and stuff like that just no one else was allowed to even know existed, and that was always prefaced with the Lion is the most loyal. Him and Lehman Russ are essentially, and I think Sanguinius, or they're probably not Sanguinius actually, were like the two Primarchs who, in every circumstance, could be trusted.
Sanguinius is an odd one, isn't he? Because he was such a close friend of Horus's.
And he was the Primarch that the Chaos Gods wanted
the
most. Khorne in particular, but I think all of them wanted him.
Yeah, but Khorne is just Wonder Man. He's like, ooh, red armor. We must be friends.
I mean, Sanguinius is also the most sort of martial of the Primarchs, so there might be something to do with that. But
that's just wrong.
You're the one who put him at the top of your power list.
Yeah, but power does not equal martial prowess.
Whatever.
I know some Blood Angels people are bone every now and then,
But what was
so the Lion has fancy toys. He is the most sort of locatable.
He's the most locatable, and bringing him back reignites that Imperium Secundus conflict that was only really solved by Sanguinius turning up, and both the Lion and Reboot agreeing that Sanguinius should be in charge.
Yeah,
that's how that whole conflict is resolved. They crown Sanguinius Emperor, which is quite funny.
Yeah, especially with the known galaxy sort of split in half by the Outer Terror.
Yes, exactly.
I forget what it's called now, but
well, that's what you do, isn't it? You send the Lion to the other half of the galaxy and go, "Can you go and fix that, please?" And then just sort of look away until everything's fixed.
Given that the Lion and the Dark Angels have actually got a gigantic quote unquote ship that they can just move. Reboot can't move Ultramar.
No, but the Lion can just stick his fortress monastery wherever he likes.
Exactly, which I'm sure has got some little guns on there.
Just a few. He's so irritating though. Like, he's so holier than thou, smarter than thou.
He's Lion.
Yeah.
That's what I like about him so much, is that he doesn't really over-engineer a problem. He's like, these guys have gone bad. Let's just destroy their planet and move on.
His flagship is called the Invincible Reason.
I know.
What a twat.
I mean, they're nothing if not quite literal, the Dark Angels.
Yeah, they're pretty straight up and down, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh, what should we call this massive piece of rock from our home planet? What about the rock?
Okay. So good.
So throwback to the great film, of course. So I think, we're both aligned that Lionel Johnson seems like the most obvious Primarch to come back to bring in the launch of 10th edition of 40k.
Yeah.
What would you like to see come back? Because for me, obviously, that lines up perfectly, because I'd love to see the Lion come back, because I collect Dark Angels.
So I want to say the Khan, but there's no chance I'm ever collecting White Scars because I'm not painting white.
Yeah, as someone who's recently started trying that, you're right.
I mean, if they release a Sanguinius model, I'll buy it. That's the thing.
Under protest, of course.
Under protest, maybe Dorn. Actually, I reckon I'm coming round to the Imperial Fists and specifically the Black Templars. So maybe a Rogel Dorn, like a proper crusading Rogel Dorn, would be good.
Yeah. I mean, we should point out that obviously there's a 30k range where you can buy, I think, all of these models.
You can buy all of the Primarchs, and some of the models are pretty cool. Not all of them.
The Lion is pretty cool. I like
the Lion's model's good.
Sanguinius is obviously very nice.
I don't like the Sanguinius model. It's too dynamic. They've tried to make it too clear that he can fly, and I don't like it. Like, the lad's got wings, just have him standing with his wings spread.
Ultimately, you just copy-paste the Celestine model, but
but make it bigger. Yeah,
yeah.
I don't understand.
Like she's high on my list of models to buy next because it is just a really nice model. I think
It is very pretty.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna
the Khan or Dawn.
Narratively, the Khan, likelihood of buying and putting in an army that I might collect, Rogue or Doran, because I'm just not painting White Skies. I'm not doing it.
The issue with Dawn is if he comes back as a Crusader and Reboot is already crusading, it's just a bit more of the same at the moment.
The problem, you bring back Doran the Crusader, and all you do is you make it easy for Guilliman to go back to Terra and start ruling. And you don't want that. You want to keep that conflict.
You essentially want Guilliman to go about his business being more or less chased by the lion to be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, there's a whole other option that we haven't considered even slightly.
Which is the Emperor himself.
No, we did say we were going to come back to all of that stuff. There you go. That's another episode coming soon. Well, no, it could be completely non-Space Marine related or even non-human related.
Will not happen.
Bring back, I don't know, the fact that I can't actually think of a character that you can bring back for anyone else is.
Well, it's not about bringing back. You could release a new Phoenix Lord model for the Eldar. You could
exactly, or go nuts and just release Isha or something.
Yeah, exactly. Free Isha from Nurgle's Garden and release that. You could do. Is there a Swarm Lord model for the Tyranids?
Yeah, the problem with the Tyranids is that because you can't really have named.
It doesn't work with the Nids, does it?
But you can't really do that. I think you'd have to. Necrons to me would seem the most obvious, actually.
But they've already got the Silent King.
Yeah, that's true.
So I mean, I guess you could release a Trazen or a Gazgul. They could do a new Gaz model.
But I mean, as much as I'd kind of rate that, equally you need them to have an opponent.
And this is the starter box for 10E is going to be Space Marines and
exactly.
It just is.
It can't be Orcs versus Necrons.
No, it just wouldn't work. Because apart from anything else, Space Marines are completely synonymous with 40k in a way that nothing else is.
Yeah, exactly.
And they've got to those boxes have to sell, and so you put Space Marines in them because
I mean, and the way it works, only 9th edition is that you can collect, say, an Inquisition army or base space your thing around something Imperial, but have it be made up of some Space Marines, some Sisters of Battle, and some Guard. That is perfectly acceptable. I'm not saying that's going to win you many matches, but
soup lists. That's what they were called in 8th edition. Yeah. I don't think they're called anything in 9th edition because no one runs them.
Because it's so detrimental to do it. Because I was considering adding some Grey Knights, for example, to my sister's list, but all the special rules that makes your army as good as it is don't apply to the other detachment you bring along. So what's the point, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. You completely lose all your benefits and don't get the benefits of bringing them.
Yeah, but it's something they could feasibly change, and the point still stands: is that you could collect Imperium and have many options, or you can collect Orcs, which is one list, right?
Which is how the Inquisition used to work.
Yes.
Back before there were all these special army-specific rules tied to keywords.
Yeah.
You could collect.
I'm playing Inquisition. I'm bringing in a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I'm bringing an Inquisitor Lord, 3 Space Marine squads, 2 Stormtrooper squads, and a Demon Host.
Yeah.
That's my army.
But unfortunately, I think the only other faction that kind of might work for is the Eldar, because you can have. I mean, you can even have lists that combine Dark Eldar, and Harlequins together.
Yes.
So that's your next most likely bet, I think, unless you do some sort of Tyranid Gene Stealer cult thing.
Yeah, you could do that. But I mean, Necrons, no. Tau, no.
Well, Tau, you say that they could actually just give the Tau some genuine love and release different Tau species.
They could. Yeah. You could get a lot more auxiliaries. That's true.
Yeah.
But none of this is going to happen. It's going to be. The most credible rumors I've seen for the starter box are Blood Angels, Tyranids, with a big Dark Angels release straight after, including the Lion. Because you
my
wouldn't.
suspicion is it's probably the other way round.
That's the other way around. Is you do Dark Angels and something, maybe Chaos, if they're going to keep up this Vashdor thing, with the Lion as a separate buy, and then you do a big Blood Angels release soon after. Because Blood Angels are missing a load of core units that just haven't been released yet since the Primaris upgrade.
Yeah, and I think Tyranids are fairly popular as a list. People love random space.
Tyranids are fairly popular as a
good,
list.
But people do like them. It's a cool army. I used to collect Tyranids.
Sure. Bugs are fun.
Exactly.
You can just absolutely cover the table in like hundreds of 6-legged bug models, which is fun, even though you're never going to win anything.
Exactly, yeah. And the other issue with the turns is that you need to paint like a billion termagants.
Yeah, that's the issue. They're not the easiest models. That's why Custodes are so popular, because you have to paint 6 models and then you've got an army.
You just slap some gold on them and you're done. It's great. So no, I think yes, the Lion. I'd be looking forward to the Lion coming out, so I can buy him and never paint him.
Yeah. So do we think we'll get another Chaos Primarch in 9th edition, in 10th edition? Last thing, I know we've been there for a while.
Yeah, the Lion's main opponent was the Night Haunter, really, wasn't he? So
yeah,
he's kind of dead.
Luther, I suspect you'll get a Luther model.
I think you'll get a Luther model, and I think they'll expand on the Fallen, which could be quite fun, because the way I see them maybe doing the Fallen is a bit like we discussed, is that they're not necessarily Chaos, but they're not necessarily Imperial, so maybe there's a Space Marine list that anyone can do with what they want.
I suspect that they'll be Chaos aligned, but they won't be any of the named gods, nor will they be...
I think their keywords won't include Chaos or Imperium. I think they'll just be...
Fallen.
Yeah, they'll just be... Here's some Space Marines, paint them however you like, and just deploy them however you see fit. You want to add like a Chaos thing to them? Sure, do it.
I think that they will be Chaos, but they won't be undivided. I think they'll be Chaos, Fallen, rather than Chaos, undivided.
I think so, yeah.
I think that's how you'll do them.
But even that, they could still play them off as loyalists somehow, just unaligned.
I think the Fallen were actually loyalists all around is just going to feel like a rug pull.
Maybe, but I think from a let's get more people engaged with this, as if we release a line of models that you can turn into loyalists or turn into Chaos.
Maybe.
To decide.
You drop them into either list, yeah.
Could I don't know. The Fallen are a gigantic mystery still, so...
You almost just want to leave them that way. Maybe you answer what's going on with Luther's Warband, say, and they're Chaos, but not all Fallen are Chaos. Like Cypher actually isn't Chaos. Cypher's always been a loyalist, say.
Yeah, I mean, because ultimately I think the Fallen, you could argue they just didn't agree with the Emperor, which, fair enough.
Yeah. Fair. Right. I think we've answered it, though. I think that was our...
Lionel Johnson. You
heard You probably
totally
did.
Novel take on this situation, of course. I'm sure no one else has suggested that Lion might come back soon.
I think that's right. I think it's the Lion, and I think that's fine. I think he makes the most sense. It'll be a cool model. It'll cost like 50 quid.
Yeah, it's going to cost 50 quid, isn't it?
And it'll look cool, and you'll be able to run him in any Imperium list.
Yeah. Watch it be Corvus Corax or Ferrus Manus, though.
Unlikely to be Corvus or Ferrus, but you never know.
Just both of them at once. One versus
it's just one model. It's just Corax, but he's carrying Ferrus Manus' head around.
Oh, that's so God of War, and I hate it.
In a bag.
No, we have to end here. We have to short. So, remains to be said. Oh my goodness, that's not English.
Hover on it again, mate.
Thanks very much for listening to this episode of Expertise is Overrated. No doubt we've said some things that were either objectively wrong or downright offensive. As ever, feel free to let us know, rate the podcast and leave us a comment, or drop us an email at expertiseisoverrated@gmail.com, tweet us at 0expertise, check out our website expertiseisoverrated.podbean.com, or come join us on our Discord server.
If you're lucky, we might just argue with you on one of our upcoming episodes. And if you're really lucky, we might call you an idiot. Come back next time for some more absolute nonsense.